All right. Good afternoon or almost evening for some of you. I'm in Central Standard Time at the moment. I hope you all are having a great day. Happy Saturday to all of you. And I hope you've planned some great things for the weekend. Um, I would like to greet those of you that will come back and listen to the replay. I would like to say good evening, good morning, or good night, or whatever time that you are listening to this recording. And I just want to share a little bit of something here. But first, I would like for you to hit that like button and share and subscribe. There's some things that I'll be doing this year differently. I have not been very present on this platform, but I intend on becoming very present on this platform, and I sort of just want this channel to take on its own form. I have some idea about what I'm going to do with it, but definitely I wanted to take on its own form, and I want this platform to be informative, enlightening, and encouraging as well. And we may talk about some very difficult things, and we may talk about some traumatic stuff that has transpired in our lives, or it may be, you would like to come and share some of the things that you've experienced as well. But I believe we are all interconnected somehow. And a lot of us have been through some of the same types of situations, circumstances, and just the vicissitudes of life that we have to experience while we're here on this earth. But take a moment and hit that like button and subscribe and share this video with someone. I believe it's going to be enlightening. We hear a lot of things that's happening out there. There are a lot of things. There are a lot of things that are happening in our political world. There's a lot of things that are happening in the church world, and simultaneously, these are some things are very. There are some awful things. However, I believe that we can make it through this, and we have to see from a different set of lens, and hopefully that it wakes a lot of us up. And I know a lot of people think that they are woke, um, but some of us are still asleep to a certain point, and we cannot expect for everybody to wake up around the same time. We all wake up around different times of our lives. I remember in church, there were things that I heard about the church, especially the church I was in, and I wasn't awake. I mean, I was young, I didn't know, and but there are other people who had experiences, and they talked about it, but we protected it and took up for leadership, and because we just did not know, but we were young, very, very, very young, like teenagers. So, how do I feel about the church? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about um, my tenure in church. I started at the age of 13 years old. I was very excited about church. I was young, and I experienced something new. We always grew up in church. My mother didn't go, but she would send us to church. And but I did hear that prior to my birth, I'm sure it was before I was born. Um, she did go to church, and I don't know what transpired that she just didn't go. But towards the end, the last few years of her life, she was very faithful to the church that she was a part of. And mentioning her right now today, January the 28th on Saturday, marks it marks 6 years that my mom transitioned. Very emotional. I thought I was going to do good today until I made a post about it, and then it began to stir up all the emotions again. And it really literally feel like I said yesterday, but it just feels like it was today. So I have come a long ways. One thing about losing a parent that you love, or anybody that you love, but definitely for me, a parent, my mother, it was life changing. My life has not been the same since. And I would encourage anybody, if you still got your parents, please love on them. If you don't have the best relationship, create the relationship that you can have, and try to strengthen it and build the bonds between you and your mother or father, or mother and father. It's important because once they're gone, there's nothing we could do to change anything that has taken place in the past. and you do not want to live with regret. And that's something that I can say is that I do not live in regret. I did everything that I possibly could do for my mom. Those of you that know, I've spoken about her on several occasions, and that's all I knew was my mom, basically. And I'm the baby of eight, and we were very close, and I was very protective of her. She was quite protective of me as a baby, or any of her children. So today is a little emotional, but I'm going to get through this because I said that I would make more videos and talk about some things. And we hear these stories out here now. Hats off to Levantre, I believe that's his name, Levantre, for coming out with his story. I know exactly what it feels like to finally be able to breathe and talk about something that you've experienced, some heinous experience that torments you from the time that it happened up until you can deal with the reality of it. And again, I'm seeing people spinning their wheels and trying to cover up. And I think that's one of the most disappointing things to me about the church. But let's talk about that later. I grew up in the church, and had a female pastor, which I vowed to not to ever have one again after my experience. Um, because for some reason it just seems to be very controlling and manipulating. And but my take on the church. Now, let me say this: I love our Creator. I still believe in our Creator, who we call by a title God. Some may say Jehovah or Yahweh. But I certainly believe in my Creator. The church has not turned me against God as we know Him, and but the system or the church that was dedicated to, or let me just say the system. Now I know it's a system. The system that I was dedicated to, that I thought was legit, and probably at some point it was, but for some reason people begin to lose their focus. They start out right, but then somewhere down the line, their process become contaminated, whether it's with fame or fortune or whatever it may be, control, manipulation. And I've had great moments in church, uh, uh, and I think I was so disappointed with the system that did not protect, um, just doesn't protect people that invest in the system, or or project, or invest in your time, your energy into a system that you would want to protect you. And by no means am I upset with God, but I don't like I don't like the system and what it has become. I think somewhere along the line that people have lost their focus, and when it was designed to be about one thing, but then man hand turned it into something different, something profitable for them, and made them, a lot of people wanting fame and fortune. Excuse me. Sometimes I have difficulties with expressing and pronouncing my words since I got these new. It's been a year now since I've had these braces, so sometimes I still find it challenging to say certain things the way that I would normally say them. But certainly, um, I it's been challenging to go to anybody's church for me, um, because I see the same pattern. It's very disappointing in the because at one point the system you believed in, you no longer believe in it, and you have to question. I've had to just sit back and question the system, and question what I've read, and question what I was taught from when I was younger, because during those times you just believe whatever the leader said. And now, um, that's not the case. You have to do your own research, and you definitely have to question the things that you don't understand, that you've heard or you hear across, that comes across that sacred desk. I think many have used that platform to prosper, and there's nothing wrong with prosperity. But I think when your ulterior motive is to just get money, or to be profitable from a people that's poor, or um, when your agenda is hidden, or you have ulterior motives, then I think that's when things begin to get dark. We see the darkness of the system. And yeah, so I'm disappointed. I don't have much trust or faith in the system now, that the system that we know. I don't have the trust or the faith in that, um, because it has been so crippling, and it has. I've experienced for myself the letdown of the system. And when you think you have somebody good teaching, and then all of a sudden they become controlling, and or they become worshipped, and for some reason people like to be worshipped, and it's a different than respect, than just you should respect leadership. We should just really respect each other. But when you turn respect into worship, that's where it gets dark again. When you're worshiping a people or worshiping a leader, when they're just as human as anyone else, because they were made flesh. And when another disappointing thing for me is when there is error, people defend that because it's leadership. I'm not saying you're supposed to be disrespectful and put them all out on the chopping block, but you certainly cannot protect their wrongdoings either. For instance, I was doing, um, I believe I was on Facebook during this time, and I was talking about my experience with the church that I was a part of over there in Palaca, right there on 11th Street, at Grace and Truth Holiness Church. I think it should be disgraced by the truth. That the name should change to disgraced by the truth. But be that it may, I remember sharing my experience on my Facebook platform, and allegedly, I heard that the leader got up and said in her church, "If you listen to him, that means you support him." Here's that whole manipulation piece again. How about if you listen to him and draw your own conclusions? Not if you listen to him, you support him. That means you're against me. And see, to me, that's still manipulating and controlling. And I can't believe still grown people, adults, would sit under that and not question it. I mean, because the ones that are there now, they still know about the situation that happened with George Boomer, because they're still there. All the ones that haven't died out, the ones that are still there, the adults, they remember the situation. And but they are afraid of leadership, because leadership has a way of punishing you. And for me, I would never understand how being an adult, I mean, a real grown adult, that you would allow somebody to control you, or to tell you how you should treat people, because they don't like a person, then they don't want you to like them, and then they can't speak to you because my pastor said I can't speak to them. So you still see a lot of that in the church, where it's a one big club, where if this one don't like you, then none of you are supposed to like that person. It's still manipulation and control. So I think they moved away from doing God's doing God's bidding, or doing the will of God, as we were taught, until they really become self-serving. And you believe it or not, I hear a lot of people, they get up and they'll teach against something if it doesn't work for them, and but if it benefits them, they keep quiet on it. And so I think that's very disappointing to me. And then I don't see change, any type of change. And that was really the beginning of my um, uh, I began to look at the church differently at one point, because I'm saying to myself, it is the same humdrum. There's no change. It's the same thing. Um, where are the results? And then they produce a lot of, not everybody, but just a lot of people not producing any results. And it's like some fanfare. You go and you do the same thing over and over with the same people, and you judge the same people, and you come out the same way, not any better for no growth at all. So I'm disappointed with the church. I'm disappointed with the system and how they have handled and are handling things, and how they rally around a perpetrator, or they try and go out of their way to protect someone who has done wrong, and then they leave the victim hanging and not protect them. And you teach love, but you don't show love. You teach um, restoration, but where's the restoration? And so I'm very disappointed with the church, with how they handle things, and how they are continuing to handle things, and how people don't think for themselves. They are crippled thinkers because they need someone else to think for them, and they're not critical thinkers. They don't analyze for themselves. They don't ask all the right questions. They just, oh, that's my leader, we're going to protect them. No, you need to ask your leaders. You have to ask, you have to question them and say, hey, what really happened? Because it everybody can't be lying on you, you know. So I'm looking at this case with um, Trayvon. I think that's his name. I probably got his name mixed up. And I'm appreciative for the people that are handling this. But I'm looking at how people are spinning their wheels, and they're still trying to protect the alleged perpetrator. And they want to make his story seem unbelievable. And it's just, it always baffles me to see a people that will protect the accused. I know you don't want it to happen to your God, because that's basically what has happened. You've made your leaders and people that you worship or you follow, you actually worship them, instead of sitting back and saying, you know what, let me just sit back on this and let's see how this plays out. Yeah, stop running to protect people that you don't know, because you don't know. And so I remember during my story how so many people from that side were still trying to protect the person that actually had called and said, hey, I remember. And they still protected that person. And why didn't you do this? They ask all the questions, all the wrong questions to the wrong people. Why not question the person that is accused? And so I find it strange that in the church, you the victim is never protected. People always protect their leader or their God, because that's really who they worship. So that's my point. I'm disappointed with the church and how the church has handled things, and how the church has scarred and wounded more souls than they've won. Yeah, you've wounded more souls than you've won. And it's amazing to me how people still will follow in that system and find no wrong until it happens to them or their children or their child or someone that they love. And then all of a sudden they blow up, but you've been hearing about what was going on, right? What type of leader that person was, or what has happened in the church. I've heard so many stories, so many stories that I can relate to about what happens in the church. And people are really being bruised. And then you wonder why people aren't going to church. And people will say, the church folks will say, well, people don't love God. They don't reference God like they used to. No, they don't see any results. And church is not offering them anything, no more than a social club, a dance, a shout, and who's who. And it doesn't, what is it, what do you offer? I don't really see where they're offering much of anything. Why would I come to your church? To be a part of a social club, or just to be on your team? What am I learning? What am I benefiting from it? And so I had to take steps back and just take a look at how my situation was handled, and said, listen, if I have dedicated my life to this, and then when I'm in trouble, you can't protect me. No. So I would say to you, if you're in a situation where you're not being protected, get out of that situation. If you're a part of an organization that doesn't protect you, what I do find though, and I've said this in one of my other videos, people that like to cover up for the perpetrator, 99% of the time they have something they're hiding as well. I found that to be true. They are hiding something as well. They did something as well. And they do not want their victim to hear the story because they are afraid that their victims would come out. I remember, and I would not call names on this one. I remember someone said to me when I came out with my story about George Bloomer, and when it hit social media, it was a lot of noise. It was really noisy, and I pulled off of social media because I didn't need to hear. I got my story out, and that's all I needed for that time, and I needed to start my process. And here you see me again in a whole different light. But I remember this person saying to me, they said, "I am afraid." He said, "I cannot lie. When I heard your story, it made me afraid because I too did something to someone underage, and I was scared." You see, a lot of times when people are trying to cover up for the perpetrator, they have things that they're hiding as well. And they don't want their victim to hear your story in fear of theirs, it's going to mobilize their voice and they'll start talking. See, one of the healing, what to me, one of the highest form of nutrition is expression. When you're able to express or articulate what you are feeling, what you have experienced, or what you are going through right now, when you're able to articulate it and express it, that is really when healing begins because now you're getting it out of your system. And no one can tell you how long it takes for you to get it out your system and talk about it. Keep talking about it. Keep talking about it until you can bring other people to a place of healing and resolve and mobilize their voice because that's the problem. We have been silent too long. And I understand the silence. One, people are silent because they are fearful of what could happen to them or what people would say to them, or they are ashamed, or they think it's just going to go away. It's just not talking about it does not make it go away. Suppressing it only really makes it worse. You see what happened to me. It took years, and I finally, and with all the emotions that came with it, it's okay to be emotional, and all of the emotions that came with articulating what I experienced or what I was feeling, it came with that. You become very vulnerable and transparent. And at some point, you lose the shame and you say, you know what? I've been holding this shame for so long. Let me just talk about it because it's killing me to hold it in any longer. And then to see somebody on the platform that has, that have violated you in some way, and you see them, they've moved on with their life and still probably at some point, some did, they still violating other people and moved on. And nobody's saying anything because people are ashamed. And so and then when you see that, it triggers you. That's a trigger. And you see them and you wonder how is it that they could do what they did and not feel anything about it. And maybe they've been doing it for so long that they have become numb and their conscience has been seared with a hot iron that they have no feelings. They're just so accustomed to doing and moving on. They're numb. So uh, yeah, so use your voice. Let your story be told. You write it, you tell it. Because these people out here, these bloggers, they out there trying to do it now. They tried to do it to me. They will try to rewrite your story. And they will try to change the narrative of your story to fit whatever they're trying to do. You're not considered in this case. Those that are trying to cover up, they're trying to do what they need to do to save their image. See? And so you shared your story. Write it in ink so no one can erase it. And they can read about you and they can hear about you. But be truthful in everything you say and do. Telling my story, I didn't have to think about it. I relived it. I didn't have to rehearse anything because I'm a believer of this. You only need to tell the truth one time. If you got to start rehearsing stuff, that means there's a lie somewhere. Somewhere there is a lie. And I've watched liars try to come out. We see it now today on that platform over there. They lying and turning around and spinning their wheels, and they forgot what they said. Because that's the thing about a liar. When you start lying, you start forgetting the lie you told. And then you got to come up with a lie to cover up the lie that you told that you forgot. And then your story is just not adding up because you're trying to cover up something that was an actuality and a reality, and you don't want nobody to know. The best thing to do, and I know they say, well, get ahead of the story and change your trajectory, change the narrative so it can look like the person that was violated is telling a lie. No, we ain't lying. We're telling you what happened. We've lost our shame. We've lost the shame of it. And now we can talk about it publicly because people have talked about you anyways, right? So you might as well go ahead and just share, hey, this is what happened to me. And this is how I feel about it. I don't care how they try to change anything. What happened? It happened, right? So I'm going to stop. My time is up. It is 26 minutes. I was going to try to go 30 minutes, but I want to do little short clips because I have a lot to talk about and I have a lot to show you. And I thank you again for coming on Battles and Journeys. Please hit that like button and subscribe and share this video. But I do want to say to you, use your voice, please. And parents, please, 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 please do your background check. Don't just send your children to somebody's church. Please be watchful, protect them. Just because that they use the title God or preacher, listen, don't automatically trust them. That's all I'm saying. You don't automatically trust them. My mother thought I was in a good place. She felt like, hey, and this is what she told me. She said, you were going to church a lot. She said, the time that you cried because you couldn't go to church, that's when I said, okay, at least I know he's in church. But my mother had no idea. Now, she trusted her child with the church. She trusted her child with the church. And the church failed. They failed us. Me and Michael Tripp, they failed us and so many others. And it was only the ones, our parents didn't go there, but they just felt like, hey, my children is in church. At least my mother said, at least I know you weren't on the streets. Even though you was in church all the time, at least I knew where you were. But she had no idea, and I could not say it, but she had no idea the church had failed me miserably. The system that I trusted failed me, miserably. And to this day, still running circles and trying to dodge and hide and won't admit to or afraid to or how it's going to make them look. I say if the person that did it can say something to you about it, then you certainly as a leader should be able to say, you know what? I made a bad decision. But your pride won't let you do it. It's people's pride. They're afraid of losing something. You'll gain respect when you tell the truth. You will. I can respect a person more when you just come out and flat tell me the truth. So please, parents, don't just trust your children to somebody's church because they're wearing a collar. Dogs wear collars. Cats wear collars. Do your background check. Go yourself. Find out. Go check out and see what type of church this is. So I'm not disappointed with God. I am disappointed with the church and the system that I invested in, my time, my love, and for it to fail me as a child. All right. Y'all have a great day. Thank you again for chiming in. and you are going to make it. I'm telling you, it has been an ongoing process for me, but I'm here to tell it. I am here alive to talk about it. So many others didn't get to this point where they lived to talk about it, or even lived long enough or had the opportunity to speak to the person that violated it. All right, y'all have a good day. Thank you for chiming in. Hit that like and subscribe button and share this video. Thank you for chiming in with me.